Hey everyone! Today we're going to be working on our natural wood wreath and we're going to make it a little bit more Christmassy than every day. This is a really good tutorial if you want to do the modern farmhouse sort of natural beads on a regular wreath with just like regular colored flowers. But this time we're going to do it with some Christmas flowers that's a little bit not traditional. I'm going to use some pinks. I may even use a little bit of coral as I get going, and we're gonna use our snowy branches to make it a little bit more Christmassy. So the first thing is our materials. What you're gonna need for this one is a natural wood wreath form. These are made of MDF, or press board or something like that. You're able to get them at most craft supply stores. And if you've purchased the kit, then you're gonna be able to get one in your kit to get started. You've got 20 of these half wood, 1.5 inch natural wood spheres. They've been cut into 2, which is really great because some of the tutorials that you see have them as a ball, and the balls are a little bit less easy to work with. So I've purchased them so that they were halves and they lay flat then on your wreath form, so you don't have too much trouble to glue those on. I've also got some snowy eucalyptus sprigs. I've got some cedar, and I've got sort of a pink, pinkish, sort of off-white peony. Got a snowy white rose, and the little bud that came with that one. All of my sprigs have been snipped previously, just so that we can save down on time. And I've got a large burgundy peony and a little one that came off that sprig as well. So what you're also going to need to complete this one is a glue gun, because we're going to need to glue on our little half wood balls. And you're also going to need some florist wire when you go to do the floral arranging at the bottom. And of course your floral snips. And if you've ever done a tutorial with me, you know that I love my snips. If you're frequent to doing a lot of crafts that require flowers and wire securing, I would suggest getting yourself a pair, because you don't want to ruin your kitchen scissors. The minute that you cut your wire with your kitchen scissors, you've put a notch in the blade and they're no longer as sharp as they possibly could be. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do, if you've seen a tutorial like this in the past, a lot of people start with the wood dowel, the wood balls, but I'm actually going to start with the flowers so that we know how much space we have on the wreath, and then we can fill in the rest of the form with the half wood circles. So I always like to start with my greenery. You can build upon it. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, I've already taken these off of a bunch, so the bunch kind of looks like that. And I've already pre-cut them so that we don't have to worry about that for this tutorial. You're gonna get a bunch like that in your craft kit. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting my words out. So what I want you to do is just kind of bend your sprigs so that it matches the natural form of the wreath. You have a lot less trouble trying to get that wired on if you do that way. And I'm probably gonna, I like symmetry, so I might just do the same on the other side. Now this wreath can be hung whether the greenery is on the side or on the bottom or on the top, whichever way you want to do it. But because it's a circle, you can assemble it any way that you want. You just turn it whichever direction you like once you hang it. So I'm going to be building from the bottom so that you guys can see it a little bit better in your video. So what I'm going to do is take those 2 sprigs to start off, cut a little bit of my wire. And you don't need a whole lot, but cut enough so that you've got enough to work with, because you want to be able to twist it on the back of each piece, or the front, whichever way you want to do it. I might do it on the front just so you guys can get a better idea of how I complete this. So I've just put the wire then in underneath the wreath, enough to clasp the eucalyptus, and then I'm going to fold it over and just pull as I'm turning the wire on itself. So it might be a little funny at first, but you're going to use a couple of pieces. So just so you can see what I've done, that's how you would secure your little branch. Okay, and sometimes wire, you need to really give it a good twist. I sometimes use my snips just to really get in there, like how your fingers can, but be careful you don't do exactly what I did. The blade sometimes will cut your wire, so you have to be careful when you're doing that. I have another set of small snips that I use sometimes for that method. Let's try this again. Okay, so on the bottom, I'm going to just come up through And I'm going to give this a little pull and a twist as I'm going. There we go. And you can cut off the excess after. I apologize, I have a little bit of a cold too, if you hear me like raspy or sniffling. Okay, and we're going to do the same with this one. Get it in there so it's really good and tight. If you want to hang this outside, you're going to want these wires pretty tight. Otherwise the wind will blow around your greenery and it'll look not great after a while. Okay, so when you're ready, just snip your wire. And you can push it down so that you don't have any issue puncturing your finger. I've done that many times. Okay, so I think that's gonna, if you wanna lay out your wreath too, I should have said this in the beginning. If you wanna lay it out with the beads on there just to see how far you need to start your greenery, you're welcome to do that as well. So you can just lay your little beads onto the wreath form and fill it all the way in so you know how much space you have at the bottom to use for greenery. Because the worst thing would be if this was all done and it was gorgeous and beautiful, and then you put your beads on and you notice you've got a lot of gaps on the bottom. So it's probably better to lay out your floral and then your beads before you start securing. Prior to this video, I already laid everything out just to keep the video a little bit short. But planning is a big part of crafting. Excuse me. And we're going to use our second one. Get your wire in there. Tie it real good and tight. And snip the excess off. So hopefully in your craft kits I've given you enough wire. I'm going to judge it on how many pieces I need, and then I will give you a few extras just in case you feel like you need to fill in gaps and stuff like that. Cut those off. Okay, so that's the first layer of greenery. The next thing I'm going to do is probably put in one of my larger flowers just so that I can see like the space and how much I need. So I'm going to use the red peony or the burgundy peony first. I've kept the tail really long on it. You don't have to. In fact, it'd probably be better to work with if you shorten it a little bit. So I just cut about half off there. Excuse me. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I don't think I'll layer it all the way over the greenery, but like as you can see, there's a bit of a space in between that eucalyptus sprig there. So I'm going to put the head of the peony in the middle of that. And I'm going to give this a good tie. And before I clip it, because I may need to keep tightening again, I'm going to put my other one on. And this one you should really get in there and make sure the head of the flower is really secure. It's the heaviest part of the flower, so it will take the weight. If the wind hits your wreath at a certain point, you want to make sure that you've got that peony on there really good. And you can glue these down after too if you want it. It's not necessary, but if, like I said, you're putting it outdoors and you really want to make sure that you've got the everything really secure, you could go through then and just dap a bit of glue on the back and then attach it to whatever's next to it. But make sure when you glue, you layer. So the flower gets glued to the eucalyptus gets glued to the craft frame. So that little guy's on. That looks pretty good. And I'm pretty confident about how it's been secured, so that's awesome. And I do have quite a few eucalyptus, so I might actually just build on this. And the thing about the natural wood half balls is that it kind of has that rustic sort of, but it's more modern rustic. And greenery looks really great with that natural wood color, so I'm going to fill up on greenery with this wreath rather than just blooms. So you're only going to get 3 blooms. 3 to 4 blooms on this wreath frame. And like I said, I may go in and use these pretty coral ones after. You don't have to use them if you don't want to, but I kind of like the non-traditional look of it. Still feels Christmassy, but it's not like your traditional red and green. So get your eucalyptus wired on. This will be your third sprig. And I'm going to cut those off. And you can even like just shape it again when you get going, because once you push down with your wire, like once you get it in there and get the wire tight, it kind of moves your branches around a little bit so you can fluff it up after. There we go, that one's on there too. So that's starting to look really nice and layered. Does it look good from your side? Yeah, cool. Okay, so the next one I'm going to build on is probably going to be my pink peony. And again, I'm going to cut the length of that, probably about half. You don't need this greenery on it. This is a telltale sign that this flower is from the summer or the spring instead of the winter. So we're going to just get rid of that. And you can bend your stem to kind of fit your situation. It fits a little bit better on your wreath if it's bent to kind of fit to shape. Okay, I'm gonna floral wire that one on. And this is also, every time you put one on top of the other, you're also securing the one prior to. For instance, this one is also getting that eucalyptus the second time when you wire it. And watch your fingers when you're wiring, because when you go to push down, they're pretty sharp on the ends. So the last thing you want is to puncture your finger while you're doing crafts. Okay, so that's looking pretty good to me. I might actually add the other sprig of eucalyptus before I add, no, okay. I'm gonna go in now with my white rose. And see how this one's a little bit different? I'll just show you the difference between how they make a summer flower versus a winter flower. So this one's been dusted with something that looks like snow and sparkle, whereas this one is definitely a telltale that it's a summer flower. So I'm gonna keep this one on because it looks really cute. And if it's not working for you as it is, you can actually just snip this piece off and then wire it on separately. But I'm gonna leave it just for now and see if I can't get it to work right. So you want to be able to put this stem, because it's a little bit longer, you need to hide it. So you're going to want to hide it in underneath the other flowers before you wire it in there. And I'm purposely leaving a bit of a gap because I will fill this part in with the greenery after, but I think it's going to look a little bit better if I do the white flower first, just so I can see where the head of that flower ends off. And then if I need to fill in anything on that side, on this side of the wreath, which I know that I probably will have to. And the idea of these is that they take all of my crafts for the most part, all the tutorials, they don't take that long. The craft itself is supposed to be fairly easy craft with very little crafting skills needed. And don't worry, not every one's turns out looking like mine. Most of the time they don't. Crafting is definitely a style. And as if you were an artist, you have a style. When you craft, you also have a style. So embrace your style and go for it. Don't worry about it making it look perfect or making it look like mine. I also make mistakes. So, you know, you have a chance then when you're going through the tutorial to see what works better for you that I might have missed. So. Okay, so now that that one's in, I'm liking the way that that looks all together. And I'm gonna add in my other eucalyptus sprig. So that one's a little bit big, but I kind of like the way that it's hiding some of the white flower. Now you can cut that down too if it's not working for you, but I like it like that, so I'm gonna leave it. So we're gonna wire this guy in as well. There we go. And rather than flattening it all down, I'm just gonna attach it to the main trunk of the eucalyptus and leave some of the other branches free floating without being pinned down to the wreath itself. So then it doesn't look so smothered, so cramped. That should work good. And like I said, you can zhuzh it after, however it looks better to you. This is starting to look really nice. I like it. Okay, so we still have our little new flower that came off our white rose. Where will I fit that in? You don't want it to look too cramped either. So I might add that. I'm going to cut it down because it's a little bit long, and I'm going to use it. I am going to use it on top of my, maybe I will put it back over here. I'm going to use it on the top there, I think. So it's a little uneven now because obviously this is heavy looking compared to this side. So what I might do is just add a few extra, maybe it'll be a little bit, what am I trying to say? Some greenery on that side to balance it out. And then I'm going to plop that burgundy, the little burgundy one, in the middle of that space. Okay, so back to the white rose bud. Let's get that wired in there so that you can move on. Can you guys see how I'm doing? Yep, good. I always film these videos upside down because it's a little bit easier for you guys to see instead of at me. It's different when we're doing a centerpiece because centerpieces have height, so you kind of need to see what that looks like with me in the picture. But a wreath is different since we assemble it flat and then we hang it. So okay, let's make sure you get all of that in there. This one's a little bit long, there's a few more components to it, so you want to be able to wire that one in really tight. Excellent. I'm pretty confident how that one looks there now. Oh, it's so cute. Really cute. Okay. And now I'm going to wire in that burgundy one too. So you can move your greenery around a little bit to fit that one in. But the idea is that I'm going to close up that gap now between all the flowers. And again, these ones are kind of like fallish greenery. I'm getting rid of that. So a lot of the times you can just pull them right off the stem once your stem has been cut. And this one's a little long as well, so I'm going to cut that one down just a quarter of it off. And then I'm going to push the stem in so I don't see it and start to wire that one up as well. You might need a little bit of a longer wire for this one because you've got to go around a couple of the different flowers. But not necessarily if you can really get in there and get it tight. Sounds good. Okay, if you can see this, see how I've got this piece that just kind of like, see it there. The stem, I didn't cut it long enough. That's actually from this one. So what I'm going to do is just, it's kind of in my way now and I don't need it anymore. It's not secured, but the rest of it is, so we're fine. I'm just going to cut that off. Excuse me. And if you have another one that you're kind of thinking the same thing, you can either wire it in, poke it in, or cut it off. So just make sure that you've got it wired in enough so you're not going to lose it when you hang it up. Okay, so here we are. So the next thing I'm going to use is just a little bit of greenery like cedar and fir. Nothing says Christmas like either of those vegetation. I absolutely love cedar personally. So that's kind of how it's going to work. It'll be a little bit like that. And that totally adds the Christmas to it, which is so awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna just take these out and I'm gonna wire them in one at a time. So it doesn't matter, it can be cedar on the end, it can be fir on the end, you decide, whatever looks best to you. And these ones are a little bit shorter, so what I will do is I will put the wire in underneath what I'll say these little two branches, sort of, because the stem itself is not really long enough to wire in. You'll definitely lose that if you don't wire it in so that it gets stuck on something before it actually falls off. I don't know if that makes any sense, but get that one on good and tight and snip it off. Push your little wire down, some cedar. So I think for this one, I'm gonna actually, instead of wiring the cedar to the frame itself, because I really will have to get down there to find the frame after all of those layering of the flowers and the greenery, I'm actually just going to attach this cedar to the eucalyptus itself. So again, tie it pretty tight so that you don't lose it. It might be a little floppy, so you might want to go down a little further than I did. Actually, I'm going to do that too. Not quite what I expected. Okay. That actually works better there. And use the arms of the cedar and the fir to get it really attached there. As you keep building upon, you're going to notice it a little bit more difficult to get your final blooms attached. No big deal, just take your time, find the best place to secure it so that it looks good but it also stays. And then that can kind of peek out there, which is cute. And I'm gonna keep going with the cedar and I'll finish off with the fir on the other side. So this wreath then will be balanced of sorts. Push your end down, and the last one will be the cedar, or sorry, the fir. And I'm going to cover up as much as that, because you can still keep migrating. Sorry, we can still kind of see the wood frame underneath. So I'm just going to layer it on top of the white rosebud. And you can do this with fresh flowers if you want, but then you'll have to keep it inside. And instead of doing what we're doing with all the flowers, you will have to use an oasis. So an oasis is like this, but they're wet, so you have to secure it to the form, and it'll have to be wet with paper towel, and then you're able to use your real flowers in there, but you'll have to keep it inside, obviously. You wouldn't want that to freeze on the step. Okay, there we go. So my pink flower is not cooperating because I don't really have it wired in there as best I can. So I just moved it to where I want it to be, and I'm going to add another big wire to really get it to stay in place now. I keep moving it around and it doesn't want to stay, so. Much better. Okay. So that's starting to look really nice. That's going to be beautiful when we hang it, actually. And when you go to hang it, you'll have a better perspective on it. So I tend to keep lifting mine up like this so that I can see what I'm working on. but when you hang it, you'll know exactly where you've put anything. You need to take it down and add to your wreath as well. I think I am going to add these flowers because the person that I am giving this to really enjoys that color. And her Christmas is not super traditional, so this will definitely work. So I'm going to include them for you guys as well, so that if you, I know sometimes you guys like to have exactly what I have, so you don't have to question what's next or what do you do after. So you will have exactly what I have in this tutorial. It's up to you how you choose to use them. So because this is now another layer, I really got to get in there and find the best way that I can attach this wire without smushing the other layers. And these are like little ranunculus heads, little small buds. Just adds that little bit of color. It's pretty, so cute. And I'm going to use another one. I think I'll use two so that it's more balanced, because as you can see, I've got a letter color over here and not as much color there. So that's another reason why I wanted to use these coral ranunculus. It'll be nice like that. So I'm going to get these in there tight, and then I'm going to move them around. So I didn't quite tighten them all the way up, just enough so that they stayed in place, but I'm able to move them to where I'd like them to live. Hopefully I've got that done tight enough. I might just use my small ones and make another twist closer to the base. And you have to do this really gently or you'll snap your wire. And there's nothing more sad than snapping your wire halfway through your craft. Okay, there we go. What's that look like? Nice. Good. Okay, so now the part that's going to bring this to life. We're going to use our little wood half circles. So you'll need your glue gun nice and hot for this one. Some people might want to use, like if you want to put it outside and you don't have a shelter that you know that it'll be out of the snow, you may want to use like an industrial kind of glue, maybe like an epoxy. Elmer glue makes a really nice heavy duty glue. So you might want to think about that. So what I've done, and what you want to do is, because your little half round is not going to fit flush on your wreath. So what you're going to want to do is put a generous blob of glue in the center, and you're going to start from one side and come around to the other as close to your greenery as possible. I don't know if you can see my glue gun off to the side there. So this is how I've done it. A nice blob. And you're going to try to fit that right in the middle of your wreath as possible. And you're just going to keep going until you get the whole thing filled in. Like this craft should take you no more than a half an hour. Might take a little longer if you want to snip things and you're just following along the video, and if you have to stop and start it again in case you're not sure what I've done. But if you're used to crafting, you should be able to get this one done definitely in a half an hour. And of course, if you have any questions, as always, you can just message me on the YouTube channel, or you can message me through shellyhodge.com or on Instagram or Facebook, Shelly Hodge Creative Studios, on both. And we've also opened our e-commerce boutique that has tree decor, trimmings, and other supplies that you might want for other Christmas projects. How's that looking? Oh, that looks good. So keep them close together so that you don't see too much of the wreath form. That looks pretty good to me. I love this take on the tradition because it's still kind of traditional, but it's not your typical Christmas traditional. Nothing wrong with red and green, but I'm a big fan of the mid-century modern style. My living room is that style, and I tend to decorate for occasions in the same style so that everything kind of matches. So I understand if you don't want a completely traditional Christmas. This has levels of both of that, so it's a good mix. And I'm just pushing down as I'm going. Make sure that it's really adhered. And you can kind of move them around until they set in case you've put one off to the side or it's not in line. I think mine are pretty in line there from what I can tell. And it is, after all, just glue gun on wood. And melted glue on wood doesn't have the best adhesion like an epoxy or something a little more heavy duty wood. So if one of the beads are not in line and you don't like it, honestly, you can just pop it off and re-glue it. So I've done a lot of greenery on the bottom, and I predict that you guys will have a similar thing going on. So I don't think I'm going to even need all 20 of my half balls. I think I'm only going to need 19 of them, and that's fine. And then I can fit my greenery in around. Make sure that you've got all your glue strings off. Nothing worse than when you hang something up and then you notice that you've got all these little glue strings going on. And there you have it. There's your beaded wood Christmas wreath. Thanks, everyone.